I wasn't supposed to stay out late that night. My plan had been simple: one drink, maybe two, then back to my rental cabin in the woods before the mountain roads turned too dark to drive. But Brimfield had its way of keeping people longer than they intended. The town was small enough that everyone knew each other, quiet enough that the tavern served as the heartbeat of its evenings. When I walked through the creaking door of the Hickory Tap, I didn't expect to meet anyone, much less him. Before I get too far into this story, let me pause and talk to you, the one watching or listening. If you've ever stumbled into a night you couldn't forget, then you'll know what's coming. And listen, before the story heats up, make sure you like this video. Share it with someone who loves a good love story. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. I promise you, by the time this night is over, you'll feel so close to the fire that skipping that subscribe button will feel like turning away from a kiss you've been waiting your whole life for. Now, where was I? The tavern smelled of beer-soaked wood and fried catfish, the kind of scent that clung to your clothes long after you left. The jukebox in the corner still played scratch country records, and the walls carried faded photographs of men in baseball uniforms from decades long gone. Locals crowded around small tables, their laughter rising over the hum of neon signs. I felt like an intruder, a city man in dark denim, and boots too new for the mud outside. And then I saw him, Lauren Haviland. Even his name carried weight, old, unusual, like it had been passed down through dust and pine sap. He was behind the bar, his shoulders broad under a faded chambray shirt, his forearms marked with faint freckles, his movements unhurried. He wasn't handsome in a polished way. He was handsome like the land around him, rugged and steady, a man carved from timber and late sunsets. When his eyes lifted and met mine, I looked away too quickly, as if caught staring. But something in me wanted to stare. More than that, it wanted to be seen. I ordered a bourbon, neat. He poured it without a word, sliding the glass toward me with a small nod. His fingers brushed mine in a handoff. That touch, simple, fleeting, was enough to shift the rhythm of the night. "You're not from around here," he said after a moment, his voice carrying that deep, weathered timbre that makes you want to lean closer just to hear it again. "No," I admitted, "just renting a cabin for the weekend. Needed air. Silence." He leaned an elbow on the bar, studying me with a faint smirk. Silence doesn't usually come with bourbon. "Maybe I wanted both," I said. His laugh was low, almost hidden. I wanted to hear it again. I should have stopped at one drink, but Lauren had a way of making time slip. Each glass he poured came a question. Where I was from, what I did, why I'd come to a town like Brimfield. I answered, though I found myself asking him questions too. Where he grew up, how long he'd worked here, whether he'd ever thought about leaving. By the third bourbon, I was leaning on the bar instead of the stool, drawn closer to him without realizing it. His hands, large and deliberate, moved with ease as he wiped down the counter, and I imagined those hands on me in ways that had nothing to do with bartending. "You know," I said, a little looser now, "your mother gave you quite a name." Lauren arched a brow. "That a compliment?" "It's uncommon," I admitted. "Rare. Like you don't meet many Laurens in the city." He grinned at that, showing the faintest dimple at the corner of his mouth. Guess I was never meant for the city. Something in his tone made me bold. Maybe the city was meant for you. The smirk faded into something quieter, heavier. He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell the faint trace of smoke on his shirt, the musk of sweat and soap. "Careful," he murmured. "You keep talking like that, and I might believe you." The jukebox switched songs, and laughter broke out at a nearby table, but the tavern had shrunk around us. There was only the bar, the bourbon, and the space between us that was growing thinner with each word. We drank too much. That much is true. The glasses kept emptying, and I stopped counting. At one point, Lauren slipped from behind the bar and sat next to me in the booth by the jukebox. His shoulder brushed mine, and though the touch was casual, it burned through me. He asked if I'd ever been kissed in a small-town tavern. I laughed, shaking my head. "Want to change that?" he asked. He said it lightly, but the weight in his eyes told me it wasn't a joke. That was when he took too much liberty. His hand slid across the table, closing over mine, rough and warm. He didn't squeeze. He just held it steady, as if waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. My pulse pounded so loudly in my ears, I was sure he could hear it. I shouldn't, I whispered, though my body leaned toward him even as I said it. Maybe, he said softly, but you want to. And God help me, he was right. His lips brushed mine then, the barest ghost of a kiss, more suggestion than action. My breath caught, and before I could think better of it, I closed the gap. The kiss was soft at first, cautious, testing. Then it deepened, fueled by the bourbon and the weeks of loneliness that had lived inside me like a hunger. When he pulled back, his thumb traced the back of my hand, his eyes never leaving mine. Come on, he said. Let me walk you back. The tavern doors closed behind us, and the night air hit cool against my flushed skin. The gravel crunched under our boots as we walked side by side, silent, the weight of what just happened heavy between us. His flannel brushed against my arm now and then, and each time, the urge to reach for him nearly broke me. 15 minutes stretched into a lifetime, and by the time we reached the cabin porch, I knew with certainty I wasn't going to sleep alone. The cabin looked different with him beside me. What had seemed like a lonely hideaway when I first unlocked it now felt like a stage waiting for something inevitable. The porch lamp buzzed above us, casting a soft yellow glow on the weather boards. I fumbled with the key, my fingers clumsy from the bourbon, or maybe from the way Lauren's nearness unsettled me. Take your time, he murmured, his voice smooth, steady. He wasn't impatient. If anything, he seemed amused at my fumbling. The door finally gave way, creaking open to reveal the cabin's warm wooden interior. I stepped inside, expecting him to follow, and he did quietly, closing the door behind him. The sound of it clicking shut felt final, like a lock on more than just a night air outside. I tossed my jacket over the arm of a chair. Lauren remained standing near the door, his hands in his pockets, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. The dim lamplight caught the edges of his jaw, the slope of his shoulders, the veins that trailed down his forearms. You sure about this? He asked. The question was gentle, but it carried weight. A chance to step back, to let the night fade into memory. But I didn't want to step back. My pulse was too loud, my skin too alive. Yeah, I said, though my voice came out lower than I expected. I'm sure. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, with unhurried grace, he crossed the room and stood in front of me. His height shadowed me, his presence filling every corner of the space. He lifted a hand, slow enough that I could have stopped him, and brushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was feather-light, but it sent a shock down my spine. I leaned into it, almost without meaning to, and that was when he kissed me again. It was different this time, firmer, fuller, as if he'd been holding back until now. His mouth was warm, his lips pressing mine with a confidence that made me dizzy. My hands rose, gripping the front of his shirt, pulling him closer. His scent hit me, pine, smoke, a faint trace of bourbon. It made me ache in ways I couldn't describe. The kiss deepened. His tongue teased the edge of my lips, and I parted for him, letting him in. The world shrank until there was nothing but his mouth on mine, his hands sliding to my waist, his body pressing me against the wooden wall. The roughness of the planks bit into my back, but I didn't care. We kissed like we'd been starving, like all the weeks, months, maybe years of hunger had led to this moment. His lips moved with purpose, his teeth catching my lower lip just enough to make me gasp. God, you taste good, he whispered against my mouth, his breath hot and ragged. Lauren, I breathed, my voice half broken with want. He pulled back slightly, just enough to look at me. His eyes burned, dark and alive, the kind of gaze that stripped me bare before he ever touched a button. If I go further, I'm not stopping, he warned. I don't want you to stop. The words came out before I had time to second-guess them, and they sealed the night. His hands moved then, tracing the hem of my shirt, slipping beneath the fabric. His palms were rough, callous from work, but the way they touched me was almost reverent. He explored the lines of my chest, the rise and fall of my ribs, the heat of my skin. I shivered, though the room was warm. He lifted the shirt over my head, tossing it carelessly aside. His eyes roamed, not with greed but with awe, as though memorizing every inch. He bent his head, pressing his lips to my collarbone, kissing, biting lightly. I gasped, my hands threading through his hair, pulling him closer. "You don't know what you do to me," he muttered against my skin. "Then show me," I whispered. The words unleashed something in him. He guided me to the bed in the corner of the cabin, his hands never leaving me. Each step felt heavier, charged. When the back of my legs hit the mattress, I sank down, watching him as he stood over me. Slowly, deliberately, he unbuttoned his shirt. Each pop of fabric sent my anticipation higher. When it finally slid off his shoulders, I saw the strength of his frame, the lines of muscle honed by years of labor, not gyms. He wasn't sculpted for vanity. He was built for life, and I wanted every part of him. I reached for him, my fingers brushing his stomach, feeling the warmth of his skin. He caught my hand, pressed it flat against his chest where his heart thundered. "Feel that?" he asked. I nodded. "That's what you're doing to me." He leaned down, kissing me again, deeper this time, as if the kiss itself was a promise. His body pressed against mine, heavy and solid, and I knew with absolute certainty, tonight I wouldn't just be touched, I'd be claimed. The cabin was quiet except for our breathing. The lamp on a nightstand cast shadows across the walls, the kind of soft light that made everything look more intimate, more secret. Lauren leaned over me, his chest bare, his weight pressing just enough to remind me he was real, solid, here. His mouth moved along my throat, each kiss slower than the last, as if he wanted to savor me piece by piece. My fingers dug into his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath his skin, the tension coiled there. He wasn't rushing. If anything, he was dragging the moment out, making me want more with every second. I arched beneath him, my body betraying how badly I craved his touch. He pulled back, his lips hovering just above mine, his breath mixing with mine. "You're beautiful like this," he whispered. "Open, wanting." The words hit me like a spark, sending heat coursing through me. No one had ever spoken to me that way. Not with such raw honesty, not with such reverence. He kissed me again, harder now, his hand sliding down my chest, tracing the ridges of my stomach before settling at my waistband. He paused there, his thumb hooking into the denim, waiting. His eyes searched mine, silent but clear. Permission. Yes, I breathed. That was all he needed. His fingers made quick work of the button and zipper, tugging the fabric down, slow enough to tease, deliberate enough to make me squirm. When my jeans hit the floor, he sat back just enough to take me in, his eyes roaming with hunger and restraint in equal measure. "God," he muttered, almost to himself, "you don't even know what you're doing to me." He stood briefly to shed his boots, then his belt, his jeans. Piece by piece, he stripped down until there was nothing left between us but thin fabric and the weight of our desire. His body was strong but not polished, broad chest, taut stomach, thighs built from years of work, not vanity. He looked like he belonged in this cabin, in this town, in this moment. And I wanted to belong to him. He crawled back onto the bed, straddling me, his hands framing my face. His eyes held mine as he kissed me again, slow and deep, his tongue sliding against mine with deliberate rhythm. I could feel him, hard against me, even to the last barrier of fabric, and friction made me gasp into his mouth. He smiled against my lips, wicked and tender all at once. "Patience," he murmured. "I don't have patience," I admitted, my hands clutching his back, my nails grazing his skin. "Then let me teach you." His hand trailed down my side, fingers skimming the edge of my underwear, then slipping beneath. The touch was fire, rough, certain, unbearably gentle at once. My hips lifted involuntarily, a plea I didn't have words for. He teased me at first, brushing, stroking, pulling away just when I thought I'd lose my mind. I groaned, frustrated, and he chuckled softly, his lips pressing to my ear. "You sound so good when you need me." "Please," I whispered, the word torn from me. That broke him. His restraint gave way, and his hand wrapped firmly around me, stroking, coaxing, claiming. The sensation ripped the gas from my throat, my whole body arching into him. His mouth never left me, moving from my lips to my neck, to my chest, marking a path with kisses and the scrape of his teeth. Each press of his lips felt like possession, as though he was branding me in places no one else had ever touched. I reached for him too, my hand sliding down his stomach, feeling the tremble of his muscles as I touched him through the thin cotton of his briefs. He hissed, his breath sharp against my collarbone. "Careful," he warned, though his hips bucked into my touch. I smirked, emboldened. "Patience, remember?" That pulled a laugh from him, low and rough, before he groaned as I slipped my hand beneath the fabric, wrapping around him. He was hot, hard, pulsing in my grip. The sound he made when I stroked him nearly undid me. We moved together, hands and mouths and bodies tangling, each touch building, each gasp louder. It was messy, frantic, tender, perfect. At one point, he pressed his forehead to mine, both of us panting, sweat dampening our skin. "I could spend all night on you," he said hoarsely, "touching you, learning you. You don't have to stop," I replied, desperate. And he didn't. He pushed my underwear down, tossed them aside, and stripped his own. For the first time, there was nothing between us, just bare skin, heat against heat. The sight of him, the weight of him, pressed fully against me, made my chest tighten with something deeper than lust. We kissed again, slower this time, as if the urgency had burned down into something steadier, something more profound. His hips moved against mine, slow, grinding, the friction unbearable and perfect. I clung to him, every nerve alight, every breath sharp. "Say my name," he whispered against my mouth. "Lauren." I gasped, my voice breaking as the rhythm grew, as our bodies slipped closer to the edge. Hearing it seemed to push him further. He moved with more intent, more passion, as though my voice gave him permission to lose himself. And I did lose myself in him, in us, in the heat and weight and wildness of the moment. The world outside the cabin didn't exist anymore. There was only this bed, this man, this night. And I knew, when it came, when release finally broke through me with a force I couldn't contain, with his body locked against mine, his breath ragged in my ear, that I'd never forget what it felt like to be wanted this way, to be loved this way. For a long while, neither of us moved. The cabin air was thick with heat, our bodies slick with sweat, our breaths tangled like we'd been running for miles. Lauren's chest pressed against mine, rising and falling in uneven rhythm. My hand rested on the back of his neck, feeling the damp strands of his hair, keeping him close because I wasn't ready to let go. He shifted slightly, rolling just enough so he wouldn't crush me, but still stayed wrapped around me, his thigh tangled with mine. The bed creaked under our combined weight, but neither of us cared. There was silence between us, but it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, meaningful, the kind of silence that says more than words could. Finally, he pressed his lips to my temple, a soft kiss, almost reverent. "You okay?" he asked, his voice rough, raw from the sounds he'd made moments ago. I smiled faintly, my chest still heaving. "Better than okay." His laugh was quiet, shaky. "Good. Because I don't usually," he trailed off, shaking his head as if the words were too fragile. "You don't usually what?" I asked softly, brushing my thumb along his jaw. "Let someone in like this." He met my eyes then, and I saw it, the vulnerability beneath the rugged exterior, the truth he'd been holding back. "I don't bring anyone here. I don't give myself like that. But with you," he exhaled, like confessing it took everything in him. "With you, it felt right." The word struck deep, settling in my chest like an anchor. I swallowed, emotions rising. It felt right to me, too. We stayed like that, tangled, skin to skin, hearts slowing into sync. The urgency of before had burned down into something warmer, steadier. My body still thrummed with the echo of what we'd done, but beneath it was something else. Something like belonging. Lauren shifted again, propping himself on one elbow to look down at me. His hair was mussed, his lips swollen, his freckles darker against his flushed skin. He was beautiful, though I doubted he knew it. "Let me," he murmured, sliding down the bed. "What are you?" I started, but the words caught in my throat when his mouth pressed on my chest, trailing kisses lower. I gasped, fingers clutching the sheets. "Lauren, show," he whispered against my skin. "I'm not done showing you what you do to me." His lips traced over my stomach, his tongue flicking against sensitive skin, drawing shivers from me. When he reached lower, when his mouth claimed me again with slow, deliberate worship, I nearly lost my mind. It wasn't urgent this time. It wasn't frantic. It was patient, tender, an act of devotion rather than hunger. I arched into him, the sound spilling from my throat unrestrained. My hand threaded into his hair, pulling gently, and he groaned at the contact, the vibration sparking through me. He took his time, drawing out every gasp, every shudder, as if he wanted to memorize them. When I finally broke, crying out his name, it wasn't just release, it was surrender. My body trembled, my chest heaved, and I felt undone in the most complete, beautiful way. Lauren came back up slowly, kissing his way back to my lips. I tasted myself on him, raw and real, and I didn't pull away. When he kissed me, it felt like sealing something sacred. We collapsed together again, exhausted but unwilling to part. His arm draped across my chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns over my skin. "You're dangerous," I murmured, half asleep already. "Dangerous?" he repeated, amused. "Yeah, you make me want things I didn't think I could have." He was quiet for a beat, then whispered, "Maybe you can." I turned to face him, our foreheads touching. In his eyes, I saw the flicker of something more than lust, more than the night. Hope, longing, the same thing I felt building inside me. We drifted then, not quite asleep, not quite awake, wrapped in the warmth of the cabin and each other. The fire in the hearth had burned low, but the heat between us lingered, steady as the pulse beneath the skin. In the morning, I knew the world would return. Reality would come knocking with its questions, its complications. But right then, in that cabin, in Lauren's arms, I wasn't thinking about tomorrow. I was thinking about the way he held me like I was something precious. The way his voice sounded when he whispered my name. The way he made me believe, for the first time in a long time, that love wasn't just something other people found. It was something waiting for me, right here, in the quiet Harbor field. And for once, I didn't feel alone.